What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Happier, Healthier Arkansas podcast hosted by the Specific Chiropractic Centers. I'm Dr. Cam.
And I'm Dr. Chris, and we just want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. If you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button, and thank you for joining us on our mission towards making Arkansas the happiest and healthiest state on the planet.
Welcome back to Happier, Healthier Arkansas. I'm Dr. Cam Daniels. This is Dr. Chris Brown. We have a very special episode for you today. This episode is for the person that just initiated care. You came in for your doctor's report, we got you adjusted, and you left, and your life looks drastically different here in 6 to 8 months. But before we get started, I always have to ask, Dr. Chris, what are we sipping on today?
Well, everybody, this episode is actually not endorsing Yogi Tea, but it's actually endorsing Guillermo's Coffee out in Little Rock off Rodney Parham. It is the best tasting matcha I have ever had, and especially in Little Rock. I've gone to all of the coffee, all the tea shops, and without a doubt, this is number one. This matcha is absolutely delightful, especially on a Friday morning.
I'll tell you right now, we are huge fans of Guillermo's Gourmet Coffee. The alleys and the wonderful baristas over there, they do an incredible job at making sure that you feel at home. I'm telling you right now, I have been to many different coffee shops, and I've never been to one like Guillermo's Gourmet Coffee, and I genuinely mean that. What I'm sipping on today is we got the 3-ingredient latte. Simple: espresso, honey, and whole milk. That's simple. So we wanted to give Guillermo's Gourmet Coffee a shout out. We love them as partners. They're absolutely incredible with what they do. But let's get into the episode.
Let's get into it.
All right.
So the scenario is, really what we're going to be going in on is, what is upper cervical anyways? The scenario is, we just took you through the process. We just went through your history. We went through your nervous system scans. We took the x-rays. We found out what was the issue in the top bone of the neck. We gave you an adjustment that initiated the complete change in trajectory of your life, and you just walked out of the door, and now you are sitting in the car.
And there's a lot of different questions that can go throughout your head, and we know for a fact, as you're listening to this, the person that just started care, there's a lot of questions that's going through your head right now, and we completely understand. Because the care that we do is so drastic. It's so drastically different.
No one knows about it.
Yeah, it's so drastically different than everything that you've experienced. You've heard of what chiropractors are in a global sense. You put them on a table, twist them like a pretzel, you do all this, you snap the neck. And what we do here, what you just received is something completely different. What you just received is something completely new. What you've received is something that you've never actually seen or heard of before. And so we wanted to make sure that we dedicate a very specific episode for every single one of our patients that just initiated care. We're going to talk about that right now.
So probably when you first walked in, when you first got into either my check suite or Dr. Cam's check suite, we probably told you what chiropractic really is, what we're doing. So let's take a zoomed out lens. Let's get deductive real quick. The big idea. First question I ask majority of people before I start talking to them and tell them that I'm a chiropractor is, I ask them, do you believe the body can heal itself? If you believe the body can heal itself, and we are in agreement and alignment with that, then it's ball game. We're going to be flowing from there. So A, the body can heal itself. How does it do that? Those codes are created by our brain, conducted through nerves. If there's anything interfering with that brain-body communication, then it makes sense that chronic health issues would accumulate and stack up over time, presenting as symptoms, leading to a diagnosis that does not get fulfilled and fixed through medications that are being applied to treat a symptom, because it's not actually what caused it in the first place. We have to ask ourselves, why is my body not healing itself on a day in, day out basis? So our whole purpose here is to detect if that healing mechanism is flowing, which is what the scan is doing, locate what's causing that interference with the flow of the healing mechanism, which is from the x-rays, and remove that issue, that interference, to restore the proper flow of healing mechanism that all humans are born with and have until the very day that they die.
And that scanner that we run is the most important test that we do in this clinic, point blank, period. The x-rays are the second most important, because the x-rays are what tell us exactly how your specific upper neck has misaligned that's causing all these different issues. But that scanner is the most important thing, because the question that Dr. Chris just asked is, do you believe that the body can heal itself? And a great majority of the world, when we do workshops and stuff like that, the entire room will feel their hand and they will say, yes, I believe that the body can heal itself. And we say, then why do chronic conditions exist? And it's because there's something that's impeding the healing mechanism within the body. But the beautiful thing is, you can check to see exactly how that healing mechanism is functioning via computerized infrared thermography, i.e. the functional nervous system scanner that we run here in the clinic. So if you believe that the body can heal itself, we welcome to the Specific Chiropractic Centers because we believe in the same exact thing. Here's the thing, medication has saved lives, okay? Certain therapies have saved lives. People have gotten good results from the traditional medical model. You have not, which is why you're here.
The traditional medical model is really, really, really good for fast death. It's really good for dealing with issues that popped up in the moment, like acute things, like I just got in a car accident, or I just got a gun wound or something, or I just got an acute infection.
Broke a leg.
It's really, really good to be able to address those things. But if someone comes in, potentially, like, let's say for a heart attack, it needs that acute thing. It needs medicine 2.0. It needs that acute treatment and care in that moment. But then once we're removed from that episode, then we have to ask ourselves what led to this in the first place. And it's going to be something that occurred during our teens and early 20s, potentially even in childhood.
And you don't just get diagnosed with a condition right at that moment. So for example, fibromyalgia. When you get diagnosed with fibromyalgia, you just got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. You have multiple different pain points that they are uncharacterized and undiagnosed, and they don't know where it's coming from, so they just label it as fibromyalgia. Migraine, same thing. You don't start with a Topamax for migraines. You started with maybe a hot shower. You started then with a ibuprofen, and it led to the state that you're in. So the question we want to ask, that you guys are probably asking right now, is what the heck just happened? Mm-hmm. What is upper cervical chiropractic, and why am I starting to notice and experience these different changes?
Definitely. So we began with the body can heal itself. That's green light, check mark, okay, cool. So now it's how does that actually occur? It occurs day in, day out. It occurs when we sleep, which is why sleep is so critical. We need sleep in order to be able to clear out any kind of waste products, any kind of metabolic, like I said, waste products that have accumulated in our brain. But really, we want our brain to be able to receive signals from our organs that need blood flow, that need nerve flow, and that need resources sent to it to recreate healthy versions of those cells and to also clear out bad versions of those cells. And when that healing mechanism is flowing, it can do that. Now, that's where that initial part, the body can heal itself. It's supposed to be able to do that day in, day out. And if it's doing that, then effectively we shouldn't have chronic issues accumulate. But if there is something interfering with that healing mechanism, then it makes sense that those bad cells are going to start replicating and accumulating, and the healing resources, blood flow, nerve flow, nutrients, are not going to get sent to that area. Which therefore, the next part we need to go in on is, what is that interference and how did that happen in the first place, the three stressors?
And these three different stressors are chemical, emotional, and physical stressors. So upper cervical chiropractic is designed to be able to analyze the nervous system, not the bones. Upper cervical chiropractic analyzes the nervous system to be able to see how that nervous system is functioning, because based on how that nervous system is functioning gives us a direct inlay on how the body is healing itself. And if the body is undergoing these three different stressors, physical, chemical, or emotional stressors, day in, day out, and the nervous system is unable to regulate it effectively because there's a problem inside of the nervous system, the body continues to compound on its stuff, and all these different conditions continue to compound and manifest itself as we go throughout. Which is why if someone is having endometriosis, for example, someone's having endometriosis and it started with that, and then now they also have endometriosis, migraines, and IBS. Well, it started with one of the conditions, endometriosis. And it's because the nervous system was unable to regulate these three different stressors and over time continued to compound on itself and created these multiple different ones. So number one, physical stressors. This is a car accident. This is You fell off a horse. I've seen that. This is you fell on your head during cheer practice. This is a football injury.
I have someone who got hit by a train.
Yep.
Train to body.
Yep. Hit by a train. Could have got hit in the head with a baseball. Could have fell on your head while wrestling.
Headers playing soccer.
Yep.
Diving on the court, playing volleyball, tripping off a curb on a hike when you were a kid, hitting the coffee table when you were a kid, hitting the fan when you were a kid, falling off the bunk bed.
Birth is really a physical, chemical, and an emotional stressor, but we'll get to that in a second. So physical stressors are some form of trauma that we've had on the head that has caused the body to tense up and that muscle or those bones to cause itself to get out of place. Okay.
Yeah, real quick. So when we're talking about stressors, think of it as like an energy bar, almost like a seesaw, where we have the stress load itself and then also our tolerance to stress. So our bodies, we're very resilient mammals, we're very resilient organisms. We should be able to have a very high resilience to stress and a very low stress load. And our body every single day should be able to either increase our resilience and decrease our stress load. They both should be happening simultaneously. At the minimum, it should be able to decrease our stress load. So how a physical stressor could cause a misalignment in the upper neck is if that stressor immediately exceeded our tolerance to that stress. More often than not, same with birth, it's the combination of the three types, but once we exceed our tolerance, our threshold to stress, that's when the misalignment of the top bone occurs.
And number two, which you talked about birth. So number two, emotional stressors. Actually, let's talk about chemical stressors. Number two, chemical stressors. So when it comes to chemical stressors, this can be multiple different things as well. Medication, a big debate of chemical stressors is vaccines. A big debate of chemical stressors is, what's in our water or what's in our food, GMOs and different things like that. Because if our body is designed to heal itself and we're putting these external stressors inside of it, or these chemical stressors inside of it, what's happening is our body has to constantly regulate and flush those things out, which is why we tend to keep things very natural here. Like I said, 3-ingredient latte. He's drinking a nice organic matcha from Guillermo's Coffee. Our whole thing is we want to be able to help regulate the chemical stressors inside of our body so that way we don't put that stress on our body. So chemical stressors are those types of things and ideas.
When we have chemical stressors, this is a really good concept for you guys to ingrain. When we have chemical stressors, our body has to create an antidote to that chemical. Chemical stressors are perceived by our body as a toxin. So when we intake a toxin, hypothetically, let's say caffeine. Caffeine is technically a toxin.
Right.
In theory, it's a toxin. Our body has to create an antidote to clear that caffeine out. When we try to get off of caffeine in the first place, that initial antidote our body made is now the new toxin, and therefore the antidote becomes the coffee, which is why when we initially stop drinking coffee, we get withdrawal symptoms.
And when you stop, if you've ever been addicted to drugs, that's where you start getting withdrawals as well, because your body essentially has an antidote to the things that you've been taking. So chemical stressors are one of the things that people are starting to understand. Talk about medications for a second.
Yes.
When it comes to medications are a chemical stressor like we just talked about. So if we already have a system that you're taking the medications for because your resiliency to stress is extremely low and your stress load is extremely high, and we're taking a chemical stressor, it's going to continue to move that barrier and that threshold further and further away from each other. And that's why you go from one medication to the next, to then taking this medication that offsets these medications, to then taking these 3 medications that offset these 2 medications. And it's because the body is constantly increasing that threshold between your response to stress and the stress that you're putting inside of the system via chemical stressors.
2 thoughts I just had with that. Medications to piggyback off of that is efficiency of removing the toxin and side effects versus direct effects. So with medications, taking them and you start taking them more and more often, our body is going to get much more efficient with clearing those medications out, which is why they start to wear off quicker, and which is why you need to start taking a higher dose. So you might have started at 200 milligrams of Tylenol or Excedrin for your migraines, and then 4 weeks later, now you're taking a 400, and then 3 months later, now you're taking an 800, and now you have to go and take those max ibuprofen, those max Tylenols, and you're taking 3 a night because you can't lay in bed straight because your body is just complete ache or restless fatigue syndrome, the body gets more and more efficient with clearing out those medications, which is why you have to take more. The next thing is side effects. If a medication is causing a side effect, wouldn't that then be a direct effect?
Yeah. If I'm drinking this coffee right now, and the energy that I get from caffeine isn't a side effect, it's a direct effect. So if I'm taking Topamax, which is I'm not going to get into it, but Topamax is a very dangerous, and it's really hurt a lot of people. And those of you watching this, especially since you've initiated care with us, those who suffer from migraines, you've probably been in the realm of Topamax. Topamax has a side effect of, obviously, vomiting and nausea, chronic and debilitating fatigue. That's not a side effect, that's a direct effect because you take the medication and it does that. There's other medications out there where depression is a side effect, but really that's causing a direct effect.
And the manifestations of those symptoms are because the stress load is higher than your tolerance to stress.
Exactly.
So the whole goal is to be able to get your system's stress load far, far, far below your system's tolerance to stress, while at the same time simultaneously increasing your body's resiliency threshold to stress, which gets us back to how does upper cervical work anyways.
Yes. And I want to touch on something really quick when it comes to medications before we move forward from this. For those of you that have initiated care with us and are listening to this and you've been taking medications and you are currently taking medications, you've been doing the best that you can. You don't want to suffer. And I get that and I understand that. I'm in this work because of my wife. She used to suffer from migraines, okay? This is why I do the work today, because now she's migraine free. But for me, I understand and I can empathize with those of you that are taking medications in order to survive. Because if you don't take that Excedrin, or if you don't take that Topamax, or if you don't take that Amivigor, if you don't take that amitriptyline, if you don't take that gabapentin, if you don't take these things, then you're unable to function in a day-to-day life. And so while we're giving you some insight of how medications work, or lack thereof sometimes, I also want you to understand that we know and can empathize with you that you're taking it in order to survive. You're taking it because you need to go to work. You're taking it because you need to function in a day-to-day life. And so that's why this care is so important, because we're able to let your body help and regulate those more effectively.
And in 6 months, your life looks dramatically different.
Yes.
Right now, by taking all the medications, I started up someone yesterday who was taking 27 medications per day. And I told her, I was like, in 6 months, you're going to be a completely different person. Because when we get to a point where your healing mechanism that is contained within your brain, communicated through nerves to the rest of your body, when that is open and flowing day in, day out, 24/7, 7 days a week, and then we start stacking the weeks up on each other, there's nothing more powerful on this planet that has a greater healing capability than the instructions that are already contained within your brain.
And I want to make a quick note. Our license does not allow us to take or add medications to anybody. So when you've probably talked to someone, if you're a referral, you've probably talked to someone that's been a patient here at the Specific Chiropractic Centers who have gotten off a lot of their medications. We did not give them a green light to get off the medications. They went to their medical providers and said, I'm ready to get off this medication. So we cannot make that recommendation. All we do, and what we specialize in, is nervous system function. We allow the patient to be able to make that decision.
What medication, or I guess category of medication, have you seen a lot of people consistently be able to get off?
Gabapentin. It's a good question. Gabapentin, high blood pressure medications, migraine medications. So that's the entire list of them. Those are the big three that I'm able to see people across the board, but it's mainly because we take care of people typically within that realm.
I've seen, for myself, the majority I've seen has been anxiety and depression.
Yep, seen that too.
That almost, the psychological history is almost always marked when
that.
people come in, because they've been dealing with so much pain and discomfort in their life for so long that, yeah, of course, we're going to have a diminished outlook on the quality of our life and be worried about when flare-ups are going to happen, because they come up whenever that happens. It just willy-nilly. That's why the whole concept of being a passenger to your body and mind is so detrimental. And by the end of this care, you're going to end up being the actual pilot behind the driver's seat of your whole life and health and well-being.
So we talked about your body has to respond to stress that comes in, and when our body is unable to surpass that stress load, it starts manifesting as symptoms because it's unable to regulate it, and it continues to compound each other. These three different stressors are, we talked about physical, we talked about chemical. Last one, let's talk about emotional. This one, across the profession, across the medical profession in general, this one is not talked about. Emotional stressors can be, and this may hit heavy for some people, but emotional stressors could be grief, so a loss of a loved one. It could be suffering from depression. It could be abuse, either emotional or physical abuse, which could also go into physical stressors.
Could happen from a divorce.
Yep, could happen from a divorce.
A bad conversation. It could happen from stress at work, stress at home. Because when, like, hypothetically, let's just say you and I just got in a fight, a verbal fight.
Right.
That is emotional. What more than likely happened to my system? What was my body's actual response to it? My heart rate did what?
Increase.
What did my blood pressure do?
Skyrocket.
What happened to all the muscles around my neck and my shoulders?
Tensed up.
Okay, so if we get to that point where we start feeling all of our muscles get super, super tense,
What's going to happen?
what happens? What's that initial adaptation response to this stress? What happened?
Upper neck misaligned.
Upper neck misaligned.
So emotional stressors are emotional
Did you, Siri?
stressors. Yeah. Emotional stressors are key when it comes to identifying, and most of the times we see all three come into the clinic, and you that are watching this, you probably had all three, or you had one major one that you can pinpoint and identify. And so these are the three different stressors that can cause stress on the nervous system, and when these three different stressors cause stress on the nervous system, over time it compounds on each other. The nervous system is going to collapse over itself. Your body's response to stress is going to get lower. The threshold's going to get bigger. So again, what is upper cervical chiropractic?
So now we're at a point where the upper neck has misaligned. You've had stressors. Some episode in your life, there was an event that pushed the needle over the haystack. Your body, you might have been good symptomatic-wise, might not have been experiencing anything, but that stress load was so close to your tolerance, your threshold to stress, and it was the little thing that took you over the edge. It was me sneezing as I'm stepping off a curb that triggered my back spasm. Now I have a back spasm. So we have a misalignment of the upper neck that just occurred once our stressors exceeded our stress load. When that upper neck misaligns, what does it do to the nervous system? What does it do to the brainstem? What is the brainstem?
Yep. So your brainstem is, think of it as the generator between the brain and the rest of the body. Everything that from the outside that we do, the taste of this coffee, the feeling of this table, a touch, everything that we do externally has to go in the body, and is perceived by our brain by way of the brainstem. The brainstem sits right underneath or right in between C1 and C2, which is the bones that we specialize in. So externally, our body has to process the information coming in, sends the information through the brainstem into the brain to perceive it. Now, we also have to send signals out from our brain to be able to grab this coffee, or touch this table, or to reach out, or to hug, or whatever it is.
Or to heal and repair
organs
in our body.
And so our brain has to coordinate those signals, send them through the brainstem, which is again in between C1 and C2, the area that we specialize in, and has to send that information out to every single cell, tissue, and organ in the entire body.
Absolutely. So when we are in that healing mode, let's say we're in sleep right now. We are in sleep, and our organs are sending information to our brain asking for aid.
Yep.
It's asking for resources, it's asking for nerve flow, and it's asking for blood flow. It has to get to my brain, and also my brain has to receive the instructions and send it out.
And back to the area that's asking for aid.
And it has to pass through the top two bones of the neck, which have a direct neurologic impact on the function of the brainstem, which is the control center fuse box of the entire human body.
So now the question is, why is it only the upper two bones in the neck? Why does the body misalign one of the upper two bones in the neck? And the answer is because it's a protective mechanism to protect the brainstem. If you look just by nature and the density of the muscles that we have inside of our body, most of the muscles that we have in our upper neck or most of the muscles that we have inside our entire spine stem from the upper neck and attach to that in some way, shape, or form. That's why we do not adjust anywhere else below the second bone of the neck. If you come into the clinic, we're never going to look at the low back, we're never going to look at the mid back, we're never going to look at the thumb because the brainstem doesn't go through there. We want to actually focus on the neurological impact and function as a result of that upper neck.
And the low back, the mid back, the thumb, and everything else downstream can be and most likely are compensations from something from the upper neck.
Yes.
They are compensations, consequences, effects. But what we are trying to do here is get to the cause.
So the body misaligns that upper neck because most of the muscles that we have that are proprioceptive, or proprioception is a big word, but
that deal with balance,
and
posture, and where we are unconsciously in space, how we sit.
Yep. So most of the proprioception, most of the mechanoreception, which is
also proprioception.
Same thing, proprioceptor. Nociceptors, which are pain signals. Most of those receptors are housed and come from the upper neck, so the body wants to preserve it up there, and that misalignment causes a massive impact of neurological function from the brain to the body and from the body to the brain.
Like just what Cam was saying, input into the brainstem. The brainstem is not only is it the interpreter and the regulator from brain to body communication, it also has all of the control centers for multiple things, such as our sleep center, vasodilatory, so blood vessels, so blood flow, blood pressure center, our cardiorespiratory center, our digestive center. It's got the control center for the vagus nerve, not just the vagus nerve, but what controls it. It has our pain tolerance center. It has our balance center. It has our mood, emotion, behavioral regulation centers. I mean, I could go on and on about all the different control panels that occur in here. And if it receives chaotic, imbalanced neurologic input due to a misalignment of that top first or second bone of the neck, then it immediately triggers the stress response, our primitive, our human, mammalian, primitive stress response, and it'll keep it on until the neurologic input in the upper neck is balanced and restored, which is what we're measuring on the scan.
Yeah, so the scan measures that stress response as a result of the upper neck misaligning itself. So that's what upper cervical care is. And in essence, it's what upper cervical care is. An upper neck misalignment causing massive dysfunction within the body, interfering with the brain to body communication and the body to brain communication, to where an upper cervical chiropractor, Dr. Chris, myself, Dr. Grant, come in, find the issue, because there's 1 out of 276 different combinations that those upper two bones can misalign. So we're trained in finding that issue, and in yours specifically, we found it. We correct that 1 out of 276 different combination that we found in you. We correct that problem, but most importantly, we get you to hold that adjustment. We want you to hold the correction that we made on you today, or whenever you came into the clinic. We want you to hold that adjustment, because the longer that you hold your adjustment, what's going to happen? The threshold that we talked about in the beginning starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then your body becomes more resilient to stress that's coming in, and the stress response in your body is now extremely low. And that's why we have you on a care plan. Because trust me, my friends, if one adjustment automatically flipped that threshold, then we would just do one adjustment. But we have to be able to monitor your case throughout this entire process to allow us to be able to see how that threshold is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and then how the resiliency keeps getting higher and higher, and how your stress load keeps getting lower and lower. We need to monitor you throughout this process, my friend, so that we were able to identify when we finally hit that, and then as we continue to hit that threshold, what's going to happen to the symptoms.
Sayonara.
Takes care of itself.
The goal of care is to, like Cam said, is to get you to hold your adjustment for as long as possible. That's where healing actually occurs. Healing is going to have a really tough time if the gateway between it being a fire hose faucet or just a slow trickle every couple days, it's going to be really hard to start gaining momentum. But when we start getting adjustments that last 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, that's getting the body ample time, momentum to start chipping away at that stress load, while at the same time increasing our body's resilience to stress. Now, when the top bone of the neck gets back to misaligning, effectively closing off the healing mechanism from our brain-body communication, which is our autonomic nervous system, the brain is going to get congested of those healing codes, and the body is going to start starving of receiving it. So when we restore that flow of information and we get back to being a fire hose, then the brain is going to start actually functioning better, which is why the brain fog will clear up, the sleep will clear up, the mood will clear up, the effective cognitive thinking will clear up, decision making. And the body is going to start receiving everything. It won't be starving anymore. That's when the symptoms of my heart palpitations or my shortness of breath or my nerve pain going down my leg or down my arm, all those things are going to clear up that you would never ever associate with chiropractic. That's why they're going to start clearing up, is because it's from the central nervous system, because my brain is now effectively communicating through my brainstem, which is the control panel of the human body, to the body itself, and now my body just feels better.
So throughout this entire process, we want you to understand a couple of things. We just talked about what is upper cervical chiropractic. I understand we probably addressed a lot of your questions that you have right now, but it's still going to be a journey. It's still going to be a journey. It's still going to be a mission, right? You watching this, you're probably on visit, 1, maybe 2, 3, depending on when you listen to this. But we understand where you're at because we've managed cases through this. At the same time that someone has started care, in that same month we have people that are finishing care. And you that just started care, it's going to be a process. The care plan, some people after their first adjustment get the amazing results. Some people don't get the amazing results, right? It doesn't matter where you at or where you are falling at this current moment. It's about what your life looks like at the end of care. And if you do 2 things, and we harp on this all the time, so you're going to hear it not only in this podcast, but when you come in for your regular office visits. If you do 2 things, and 2 things only, show up to the appointments and trust us. If you show up to the appointments, obviously we need you here. We can't run our scanner over Zoom. If we could, then we can finally reach the people in California. I could finally reach the people in Michigan and Iowa, but we can't. So number 1, we need you to show up to your appointments because we cannot do this over Zoom. And number 2, we need you to trust us. Trust us when we say you have to be adjusted. Trust us when we say you don't have to be adjusted and you're holding your adjustment. And if you do these 2 things and these 2 things only, your life looks drastically different. Like we said at the beginning, your life looks drastically different here in 6 to 8 months. When you're sitting across from us on your final reevaluation, and we pull up your first initial patient paperwork and we go through it and we say, do you remember?
The trust part is the toughest because your relationship with someone who has the title doctor is shattered. Mm-hmm. You have been everywhere, you have tried everything in regards to your health, and nothing has worked. The EKGs, the MRIs, the CT scans, they've all come back normal. And you thought that you had the issue fixed with getting some kind of lab test done, and it came back normal. And you've done all the medications, and nothing has actually helped. You don't trust the doctors. They tell you to go drink water and get some sleep. And now we're out here telling you that, yeah, we figured out the issue, and we're going to help you get well. And you're all like, I don't know about that. There's going to be a time, it's not if, it's when, you're going to walk in, you're going to be symptomatic, and your scan is going to be clear. Your nervous system is going to be functioning properly. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing because then we can predict that the flare-up that you're happening will actually clear out faster than it used to.
Yes.
Exhibit A for me right now, I'm prone to getting back spasms. I've been getting them since I was 14, over a decade. And the longest one I've ever had has lasted 4 months. Typically they last me about 6 weeks, anywhere from 1 month to 2 months. My one currently right now that began 5 days ago on Sunday is almost gone, which 5 days. Sometimes it gets knocked out real quick. I got scanned on Tuesday and I did have to be adjusted and it didn't clear out right away. And that's okay because I understand that healing is going to run its course, and now I'm in a position to where the things I'm doing at home are going to get integrated properly like they should, and now I'm on the back end of it within 5 days. These used to put me down 6 weeks to 4 months. Now its recovery rate is down to 5 to 7 days. And it's going to be the same thing for any kind of flare-ups that you have. Migraines, anxiety attacks, we had mentioned endometriosis. We're gonna mention heat-cold intolerance, palpitations, all these random things, neuropathies. Flare-ups are gonna happen, but it's your body's ability to bounce back. That's what you're going to notice.
And you may still be skeptical. You may still be skeptical, especially if you're early in care. And those that are watching this, obviously, we release this podcast. We've been taking care of patients for a while now. So those of you watching this, that are on maintenance or towards the tail end of care, you're probably watching this and you're probably telling the people that are watching this that just started care, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. But those of you that had just started care, just left the clinic, just now listening to this podcast, listen, you still may be skeptical. You may be skeptical because maybe you've seen a previous chiropractor before and they've adjusted everything and we're only adjusting 2 bones in the neck. You may be skeptical because you've been to the Mayo Clinic, you've been to Cleveland Clinic, you've been to these places and they didn't help. And so what are these 3 doctors in Arkansas going to do for you? You may be skeptical because you've been burned by other doctors because they thought that they had found the solution and then you were extremely hopeful and you didn't. Whatever way you may be skeptical or of whatever reason you may be skeptical, we get it. We understand. The patients that do the best are the skeptical ones because at the end of care, you won't be.
Can we shed some light on some of the case types we've had recently? What are some that we've wrapped up recently? What are some just notable ones for yourself?
So just wrapped up someone who has gotten neck injections for neck pain. He had spent a lot of money on neck injections and facet injections specifically for his herniated disc. And so they thought the problem was a herniated disc. Oh, it's a herniated disc, the herniated disc. But really it was I keep using these big doctor terms, but it was the nociceptive or pain signals from his brain that were actually causing that pain response. And now he's golfing. Now he's able to continue to work and do the things that he wants to do. So that's a big case. He's been, suffering from that for a while. Wrapped up a lady. She was suffering from fibromyalgia for 45 years. Migraines for around 30 years. Wrapped up another patient. She went all the way to Mayo. That's why I bring these up. She went all the way to some, Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. Took her through this migraine protocol. And what happened is they told her, you need to just drink more water. That's the answer. You just got to drink more water. Sure enough, the problem was coming from her upper neck. Who else? Keep going.
Yeah, I'll let you think a little bit.
Because
I'm about to wrap up someone who she had Hashimoto's, autoimmune condition of the thyroid, heat cold intolerance, palpitations, unusual weakness, chronic fatigue, sleeplessness, brain fog, headaches, couldn't go up the stairs. And after her first one, she was humming around gardening, able to go up the stairs, no issue. She just had, I think 10 grandkids over at their house for a week long at Thanksgiving, doing a bunch of chores and labor for them, no issue. She's been holding her adjustment for 3 months.
Just thought of one. CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome, or also known as, there's multiple different, RSD.
Yeah.
But CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome, she exhausted time, finances to go to this big clinic that takes care of it, got very good education from this clinic, got minimal results, turned out to be because it wasn't because she needed, these certain therapies or injections, or it turned out that was coming again from her upper neck because her body was perceiving this pain from all different areas. So that was one.
I got another one. Someone who was due for a surgery of a nerve 2 days after starting care. She's about to wrap up around next month or so, but she had 32 different symptoms stemming from cardiovascular to respiratory to digestive to neurologic to psychologic, and within almost the first one, she comes back, she's like, she had widespread joint pain. I'm talking toes, ankles, knees, hips, fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, and all we did was touch, for her, the second bone of the neck, and it cleared up.
Endometriosis, had a case of endometriosis. The reason why I'm bringing her up specifically is because she thought with her endometriosis, they told her that she essentially could never get pregnant again, got pregnant. I
got a guy right now who his case, talk about chiropractic being traditionally neck pain, back pain, rack 'em, crack 'em, see you every 2 weeks of your life. He has ADHD, epilepsy, and sleep apnea, and he is within 6 weeks not taking his Adderall. He's sleeping better. I don't think he'll ever be confident to get off his epilepsy, but just like that's what they're presenting with, not neck pain, back pain. I have a toxic mold case where she had neuropathy going down her left arm, both of her legs, brain fog, really crazy mood swings, sleeplessness, irritability, a conglomeration of stuff. And within 6 weeks on her first re-exam, she's like, all I have is a 1 out of 10 tingling in my pinky. That's it. She told me, before you go, she told me that right now, the version of me that's living, this is the version of me I always envisioned myself being, but I hated myself because I wasn't ever able to be it. And that was powerful.
And we take care of, oh, I just have neck pain. It's better to catch it early. We take care of people that are like, look, I just want to get my nervous system checked to make sure that I'm functioning. We take care of people like that too. The whole key is to be able to check and see how your nervous system is responding, whether there's symptoms or not. Because symptoms aren't always the best indicator that there's actually a problem going on.
When we have symptoms, that means that 80% of function has been lost. And we need to restore. Luckily, we regained that function a lot quicker than how we lost it. But for myself, for example, my last back spasm before the one this week was in April. So that is 8-9 months. And I still get checked personally once a week just to make sure, hey, we're good, solid. I don't have the best indicators of whether or not I need to be adjusted. But I know that this is easily the most impactful test that I can get done for the longevity of my health span of my life. And then I value that a ton. In order for my patients to get well, I need to make sure that I'm right, that my nervous system is functioning. Cam gets checked once a week. Grant gets checked once a week. It is the most impactful test we can do because it's literally unlocking the power that your brain already has. It's just been jammed up.
And like we said, it's going to be a process. If you want to get the best results, we need you to stay involved. We need you to get engaged. We probably already talked to you about our app. Make sure you download our app. Keep in contact with us. Listen, most importantly, to show up to your appointments, and trust us. And my friends, if you do these two things, and these two things only, on top of the stuff that we will tell you to do at home with the breath work or whatever it is, on top of the stuff we tell you to do at home, but if you do these two things and these two things only, we will get results. So,
if you could describe upper cervical chiropractic in one word, what would it be?
Necessary.
I say humbling.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how quick or how effective your body is going to respond. But what we do know is that when we see a clear and functioning nervous system day in, day out, a lot of really good things are going to happen for you.
We look forward with this journey that you are on. Again, it's going to be a process. Those of you that are watching this that are not patients, you just were interested in this episode, thank you for hanging in here to the end. You can feel free to contact us at 501-420-2815. Schedule a complimentary consultation with us. Just come in, get your nervous system checked, and see what we have going on. If there's nothing going on, guess what? We'll leave you. If there is, then we'll go ahead and take care of you.
Please click that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot of good stuff coming out. We have an app called the Specific Centers. Make sure to download it. That's how you're going to be able to get access to all of our guides. We release free guides for at-home care through the app. Also on our Facebook group called Happier, Healthier Arkansas. We're going to be starting to do after evening lives starting in 2024. We're going to start having events, coffee community, walk with friends. There's going to be a bunch of involvement just geared towards making Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state on the planet.
We're proud of you, and you'll be proud of yourself too. Take care.
We hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Happier, Healthier Arkansas. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your guys' support. Please click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Thank you for joining us.
And if you're on a mission to help make Arkansas happier, healthier with us, again, please feel free to share this with anyone that you know so that way we can continue to help perpetuate the mission of making Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state on the entire planet.
Until next time,
see ya!